So I will call the meeting to order. We can do the pledge.
Yeah, I don't need it back, I've got an electronic.
All right. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wondered if
We
you
actually
know.
have a new one. I did not.
One of those? I thought you were treating facing the other way.
Well, I did eventually.
So we'll first open it up to public comment. And with no public seen, we will close out public comment. And then next one on the agenda is the town manager report.
Oh, the town manager report. I guess that's why I'm here.
Did you walk in?
No, it's okay.
I thought you were just here to support.
Usually it's at about 11 o'clock at night that we hit the town manager report. I'll take this. Yeah, so I have been, obviously, I was present for the presentation the other night. I thought it went very well. I'm here, and Dave is here to support the committee as we work towards the next step. It seemed to me, sitting in the room on Monday evening, that the consensus of the council was to accept the recommendation and move forward with a structural assessment. That having been sort of where Weston and Sampson left off. And, you know, I have conferred with the chair in the last week or so. I understand that there is somebody who does this for a living, somebody who is going to be in the area and is willing to stop by and give us a quote, look at the facility very, briefly, but enough to inform the quote that she will be giving us. And, we're certainly agreeable to that. I think it would be best not to have, the whole committee there. I mean, we're trying to keep it kind of manageable, and so certainly with things like this, the leadership of the committee, I think, would probably be well suited to attend. But we try to keep these things from having a quorum present or inhibiting the expert in preparing her quote. So that's what I'm here to say. The other thing I will say is that I had a very nice conversation with Ann Ciampa yesterday. We talked at length about the beams that came out of the floor. Ann promised to deliver and indicated that a letter was forthcoming. And I asked Ann if, knowing that this meeting was happening tonight, I asked Ann if she was intending to get it to me so that I could get it in front of you this evening, and she delivered it for that purpose. So it's in front of you. The letter speaks for itself, but I think that Ann is most interested in talking about those beams. I think any kind of decision on that would probably be premature before we figure out what the plan of action is. So that's all I have to say. I am not going to be staying for the whole meeting, but I did want to come and just make sure that the committee knew that we're supportive of that effort, and anything that you need from us, we're happy to assist with.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had voiced an interest in attending when that happened. I know Kathy's a little reticent. Her stipulation was don't say anything, that's fine by me. The reason I wanted to attend is to actually see what she's looking at and what she makes the assessment on from my own education. Is that likely to cause a problem with a quorum of people or anything?
Why don't we see who's available to? So my understanding is it hasn't really been. I mean, it's been penciled in, and
yeah.
I think let me and Dave work with.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a problem, I'll stay away.
Yeah,
but I'd like to go very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we will. We'll work through that as the meeting comes together, and make sure that that we don't have a quorum.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to create a problem,
Yep.
but I'd like to attend if possible.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Can I ask a question?
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
In regards to this person that's coming, I believe it's a lady from Portsmouth, do we have anything that tells us what her qualifications are?
Yeah, so, Larry had handed me, some information, I think, pertaining to her work in Mount Vernon. I believe that there was a restoration project, or not a restoration project, whatever you want to call it, that took place in Mount Vernon. That information, I didn't have time to examine it, but is in front of all of you. And I would emphasize, and I'll let Dave jump in here, that, she's providing us with a quote, a proposal.
Exactly.
So I think that, that doesn't mean that this is exactly what we're going to do. I think that, it's the first step in evaluating if this is the vendor that we would use for this purpose. But it, you know, if the committee or if there are issues with, you know, her experience or what have you, which I don't think is the case, then we would, you know, we're not committed to anything.
Yeah, I would suggest we don't have any problem with this person. It seems like that, I haven't read this, but that certainly she has, and her company has plenty of qualifications.
That's what
She's
it
done
sounds
all
like.
this.
Yep.
But I'd just like to say, in talking to Ann Chapper, in regards to the people that did the work at the first
Parish church.
parish church in East Derry, that particular contractor, I think, would be very helpful if we contact them and see if possibly we could get them also.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of a few more steps down the line, but, I think what I, stressed, just in talking with, Mike was, the qualifications of the company and the product that they make for you, wanna make sure that it's usable, because you're inevitably gonna, probably be into a design phase. That's the next logical step after hazmat assessment, assuming that everything comes back in good nature. So we wanna make sure that you end up with a product that is usable and deliverable to whomever the design firm is going forward. And then the next step is what you're talking about, is after a design is done, then you get into the selection process, who's gonna do the work of the design.
Well, they are a design company, I think.
And they could be
Pardon?
that as well.
The one that you're referring to, I think what is it, preservation.
timber, it's this one.
Yeah, they generally do the design and recommendation,
Well,
Yeah, we can,
they do all
the
of
whole
that.
thing, yeah.
All of that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And what I'm
Enough.
suggesting is, we need more than one.
yeah,
Yeah, so
And-
this initial quote from her would just be from a structural engineering aspect. And then if we would like to move forward with them, for a, for next steps, let's say, between design and bid out, and then we could also reach out to this other company for design and bid out, cause I think from a town perspective as well, it's best if we get 2 to 3 quotes in.
Yeah, I think that, I think it's probably not a great practice to just go with the, one, to just look at one and to just go with it.
Exactly.
Obviously, if there is a compelling reason to do that, that's fine, but, if there are other qualified people who, would be willing to quote the work, I would recommend that we look at that.
So, thank you, Mike. Just to clarify, you already clarified it is our code that you were talking about. And are we still talking about October 2nd? Is that?
I don't think dates have been,
I think it's coming
Fully
together.
I haven't received any, information
Okay, that was
from
a-
you guys, as I don't know who's setting it up with her, but.
So Kathy had
But I know
gotten
that-
that as a potential date, but then Kirsten was following up with.
Yeah, I think Kirsten was gonna give you guys the, procedure and how to, say, hey, this is a date and time,
Mhm.
who's coming in, they're insured, what are they gonna do,
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
And she's out of the office this week, but we'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, no problem. And the only other thing I wanted to say was, from both the, the town council meeting on Monday night and also from tonight, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that not only are we sort of getting to the same point of we need to go to a structural engineer as Weston Sampson did, but also as Dave did.
Yeah.
Right, like, because that happened
Yeah.
after the Weston
Yeah.
Sampson, and you presented all of, sort of the work that you did, and that was literally the next step
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I mean,
you did
I was
too,
very
right?
pleased with your, all your work, to date and the presentation that you did in front of the board. And I was, excited to see that they were, seemed committed to the next process, because again, we just can't go into this blindly. You know, and the work that was done, previous to this, both on your behalf and the stuff that I did with Weston and Sampson, is not all for nothing. I mean, we had to have an initial assessment and look at it, to say, hey, is this even worth exploring it? Or are we totally, not able to do it? So, you know, to get that next step, I'm as excited and eager to start, start deconstructing the building a little bit, to really get down to the weeds of it and really get some good, analysis, so we know exactly, what depth we're gonna need to get into to make it a viable option to get in there.
At what point do you anticipate opening up the floor so we see what's actually under there?
I think that's gonna come from whomever we select. If it happens to be this firm,
That's gonna be
then so be
crazy.
it. I don't know which, they may have other means
Yeah.
that they wanna do it
Yeah,
from the
I mean-
outside.
As you're well aware, at the moment, we're all sort of guessing.
Correct. And so that's just, that's the importance of making sure that the next, group of professionals that go in there, is well vetted, and we know exactly what it is that they're gonna do, how are they gonna leave it when they're done their analysis, so that, we don't compromise the building any more than it already is,
Yeah, yeah, that's the main thing.
you know.
I would suggest that when this outfit comes in, they're initially gonna take a look at the building. They've already been presented with the previous information from Weston Sampson.
Anybody can look at that.
Yeah, but unless they see something further, and I'm not sure that's what they're gonna do initially, they cannot make an assessment of the structure of the building and who is going to do the demolition to remove stuff so that it can be properly.
So what you're talking about, Ray, is what I suggest the committee does when you're interacting with this group or person or whomever it is that you're vetting out, is just ask them for a scope of work, so that it's clear that on this date at this time you're gonna come in. I don't know if the date that you're setting up now is just initial, come down and let me see where is, what's the address, and they're gonna come and just look at the building, do a general touchy-feely look at it, or are they coming down to, let's cut a hole in the floor here, let's rip some, sheetrock down, let's take some vinyl siding off. If they're gonna do all that, you just wanna make sure that that's in your scope of work, so it's clearly understood and stated, this is what you're gonna be paying for us to do. And maybe, they'll present that back to you after this initial, I wouldn't anticipate that they're gonna come down on their first visit and with saws and
Yeah,
hammers.
exactly.
We're
She
not-
was talking about 30
No,
minutes, so.
I think it's
30 minutes, you're
I
not
think
gonna
it's
make
an
that up.
introduction.
They're gonna walk around and decide,
Yeah.
So
what we need to
So,
get
so
at.
after that introduction and that firm looking at that building, then they should then propose, a scope as to, here's the way that we want and what we wanna do in order to make our professional
And certainly they
evaluation.
can't give a quote until they've seen further.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
And they may wanna know, well, is there things that the town could do to assist to keep the cost down? Like, for example, if they want a slot of the floor a foot wide, cut 4 feet wide, and we can assist to cut the hole so that they don't have to have, a carpenter come down to do that, happy to do it. We'll set that up. If they want 4 rows of vinyl siding taken off so that they can take some of the paint off or look at the clavards underneath, we can do that and we can put it back on. There's no need, we'll try and keep the cost down. That'll be the importance of that scope of work that's gonna come from them. Because there may be things in there that we can assist in their process to give them the access, the real internal access, not just opening the door and walking inside, but what do they need from us? And we'd be happy to accommodate any way that we can.
Thank you.
Makes
Thank you.
sense.
Okay?
Perfect. Any other questions?
Okay.
I'm gonna,
All right.
excuse myself.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mike.
very much.
Friday.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the good work.
Thank
Here.
you.
All right.
All right, so we will get into the next order of business, which is old business. I don't think we really have much lingering besides the fact that, we did have the presentation, on Monday. So I think maybe the only thing we really should cover is what people's thoughts were on that, and, did anybody have any further thoughts to that as well?
I thought you did a fantastic job, actually.
I thought you did a fantastic job.
No, I appreciate
Absolutely,
it. I was
absolutely.
glad you were there to support me.
Yeah, I would say the same,
Yeah.
I echo the same thing, and I think it was good, Larry, for you to, chime in. And the only thing I would have added was what I just did, to, sort of acknowledge Dave, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And he doesn't have an ego about that, so I think that's
Yeah.
fine. There was a little, they were getting a little wrapped around the axle with the kitchen
Yeah, I know.
situation, but
Yeah.
I think we moved past that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, otherwise, I think it was, the way I interpreted, and we should make sure we're all on the same page, is, we're still sort of waiting to hear from the town council as far as our charter, right? Like they said they'd let us know
Yes, yes.
if we were going beyond.
Well, unless they say, whoa, we can continue on.
Right.
Theoretically, yes, but that was sort of left as a,
Yeah.
as a hanging
Yeah.
chad at the end of the meeting there. And I think this whole question of when it comes time with this group or someone else to actually get money to do the assessment, the $15,000 to $25,000 or whatever, Mike seemed to indicate that there's money. that,
Yeah.
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 So that was encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, those monies, some of the other things I think we should additionally ask for is like a small fund to do some marketing too. So I think that that's something we really wanna include in there as well as, if, let's say it's $20,000 for the assessment, I think we should at least ask for a little bit of extra funding to do some marketing. Like I forget who brought it up originally, but it was doing that thermometer. So, or if we were to do some mailers out within the Londonderry Times, I'm sure that they would be happy to assist us with that as well, and, but there is a cost factor to it, but if we wanna get the word out there, cause I know, I always forget his name on the town council who came here and had stated the fact that, John, thank you, and stated the fact that nobody knew about it, right?
Mhm.
So we just have to get the word out there.
Well, it very important, I think, is getting the word out and informing the general public, inspiring the general public. And I would suggest that we need to tell the story, okay?
Right.
When you look at that building, it's just a white building, okay? People drive by that and there's the church there and this, I don't know even what that building is, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I would like to see a banner on that building saying Dr. William Morrison's
Yes.
Meeting House, okay? Not a permanent a sign, just a temporary sign. And yes, the idea of the thermometer, I think I brought that up. I think we should think about that. I mean, wait a minute, winter's coming, okay, but winter's not here yet. We're
Right.
still in fall. It's really a nice time. And I think, in addition to getting the word out and putting something on social media,
Yep.
getting the word out in other ways, in the public, you know what I mean? So, I just think that's very important, and I think we should think about that.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Definitely.
And I second all of that, and I'm a marketing guy, so I'm all over,
Okay.
I'm loving all that. I do think one of our challenges is gonna be until the town council really gets into the budget and decides what they're gonna be asking for, right?
You know-
Are they putting a $1.5 million warrant article on the ballot, or are they doing something else,
You-
right? Until we know what we're asking, educating and inspiring, that, love your word, the community, absolutely, we need all that. But until we know what we're asking for, we don't know what numbers to put on the thermometer, right?
Exactly.
But you heard what John Farrell said at the beginning of the meeting about, monies and, and there might have been a subtle message there. Don't be asking for too much, you folks here,
Yeah.
It wasn't subtle.
So we do have to think about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about the lower floor, and we're talking about trying to keep the costs down, and maybe talking to other businesses, and so forth. So we do have a lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Eric, can I ask
Completely.
a question?
Yes.
One of the things that, after John came in and shared his view on the budgeting process and the appetite for spending money on this, one of the things I've been kind of struggling with is whether we might be setting ourselves up for failure, given the time frame that we have to work with between now and March, by trying to be, trying to go for the whole enchilada in a warrant article. And I'm almost wondering if part of the thinking around phasing is to get the building open in some fashion and use, and then set the stage for the following fiscal year in terms of making the big ask for whatever it's gonna take to run
I
with.
think
So I
that's-
just wanted to see what you-
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think that's exactly what they charged us with. Let's get us in the building, let's get the building open, and we can do that in phases.
True, but I think
But-
our understanding from various sources, including Dave is that just to do that is we're gonna require about $1 million, at least $1 million,
you're gonna talk about $1 million,
right?
million and a half.
So at some point, you're right, I mean, the budget season is like now, right? And so whatever they're gonna decide to put on the warrant, and even if we got voted in March, they can't start the work until July.
Yeah.
So if we were to try to get something this year, but then put it off till the next fiscal year, then you're talking about July of '26.
Yeah. I'm not advocating that, but
Yeah,
I'm just
but-
telling you that I really have some angst over
Mm.
the time frame that we're dealing with here in terms of accomplishing everything that you discussed, Ray, in terms of heightening awareness, educating the public, laying the groundwork, getting the marketing activities moving forward, while there's some budgeting going on in parallel, as the normal process goes on.
And that's where it's vitally important that we know what some of these costs are going to be.
Yeah.
Okay? Like we're talking about the stability of the building. Okay, so, I mean, let's just hope the foundation is perfectly fine, we don't have to do a damn thing with it. I got my doubts about that, but what the hell do I know? That's why we have the experts come in and take a look at it. So now we get an idea of what potentially has to be done there. And the cost of the floor, we know the floor's gonna be done. And then we get into the other things like electrical and hazardous waste. I mean, we can't do a damn thing until we have determined what the hazardous waste is in there, if any,
Right,
and that's gotta be dealt with, and what that cost is.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so now, we got some of those figures, now we can come back and say, well, we're talking like 750,000 here, or $1 million, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And we have to explain that, yes, our charter, or whatever it is to get the building open, but let's be realistic. Can we do that? Can we do that with a certain amount of money that's going to fly on a warrant article?
Right.
If we put in 1.5 million, it probably ain't gonna work. Maybe $1 million's not even gonna work. Can we get something done and get the building open for 750,000? I doubt it, but wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And I think it also depends whether that's, a $1.5 million hit, or whether it's a bond, a 10 or 20 year bond, because then you're talking about spreading out that
Yeah,
cost,
and
and that's, the
That's,
budget
that's,
people,
that's,
they decide.
they gotta figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, weighing in along with Ian, putting my marketing hat on, if we're gonna do serious fundraising, to help offset that number, there's not a lot of runway to do that either.
And we can't really start
We-
until we have some of this other information.
Yeah, I mean-
unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're on a very short time schedule here,
And
you know.
how many residents did they say were in town again?
27, I think, or
I mean, what we're trying to do is normally a
Roughly
sort of
now?
18 month to
27,000?
That's all right.
27,000 residents, is that about right? Nowadays?
Probably closer to 28, but.
Yeah, so even
Well-
if you're at like 1.5 million divided by 28,000 divided by 12, right, that's still like almost $4.50
Yeah,
a month.
and keep in mind, those are residents, including children.
Yeah.
And they're not,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not paying anything.
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, because even at that, it's like $4. So
Yeah.
if you're taking that,
You probably want to
household-
divide it by about 6,000, which is the number of residences.
Yeah.
Something like that, give or take.
Some of you guys remember Brian Farmer, who was a town councilor, and he and his wife, Elaine, started the Arts Council, but we used to talk about fundraising for concerts on the Common and all that sort of thing, and also bigger projects, and he actually sat down with a spreadsheet one time and figured out how many, apple cakes and cupcakes you would have to sell in order to. It was a sobering exercise, and he did it kind of tongue in cheek, but he's right. I mean, you can't have bake sales to the closest gap. But anyway, so the other thing I was thinking is, just as another side step in this process, it might make sense, not right now, but not in the not too distant future, to ask Justin Campo to run some numbers on whatever the number is. Let's say, start with $1 million, figure we're gonna float a bond for that. What's the actual, based on current market rates for money, what do the numbers look like in terms of the
That'd be
actual
really
tax
helpful.
impact?
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that on the table, because I think that might be a useful thing,
Yeah.
because it really doesn't mean anything to me. I mean,
Yeah, none of us can do that math.
Yeah.
Well,
Justin can.
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's his job. So,
No, that would be great.
That's Campo, right?
Yeah, CAMPO, yeah.
for the first year or two I dealt with him, I kept calling him Ron.
Yeah, but he's very,
looks-
very approachable, very, very forthcoming, very
He's
easy
very
to talk
Oh, he's
to.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a whiz with numbers, as he should be in that role, so.
But as a taxpayer, it would mean a lot to me to know what the dollar and cent impact on my tax rate would be for something like this.
It'd be interesting to know 1 million, 1.5, like.
Yeah.
But what does
Yeah.
it
Like, what
really
are the
mean?
different-
Is it 40 cents per thousand, money and
and-
tax bill, or what,
Yeah.
what is it really?
Right.
And another thing, whoever's gonna be talking to him, should inquire of his knowledge in regards to grants, ARCA grants, any other grants, because he knows about that, and could maybe say, well, don't even bother with that, but, maybe you should go after something like this. I don't know.
I like that idea. I wonder how much he does know, only because, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Only because I don't know that we've taken advantage of a lot of grants.
Oh,
No.
the town has,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
From ours, like,
Well, the
building
fire
inspector.
department, the police department, the school department, all of them have gotten grant monies.
Yeah, and
From-
he runs the grant
Yeah.
process for, we just got another grant award for.
Oh, he does? Awesome.
Concerts
Okay.
on the Common. and
Yes, yes.
There's a lot
Great.
Well-
that he has to do to put the package together with.
I actually had a little problem with the fact that they want to use grant money for the rail trail. Wait a minute, I'm not against rail trails, but wait a minute. If we're gonna get grant money, we gotta use it for the most important thing. Now, maybe this is not the most important thing, but that doesn't mean we still would not be eligible for something like that,
Yeah,
okay?
there are trade-offs. I mean, like,
Well,
for the Arts Council, because we already have a grant, we're ineligible to apply for any other things that I would like to take advantage of. So
Yeah,
it's a little bit of not a bone of contention, but it's a concern for our committee, because there are other things we'd like to do and get grants for, but if we do it, we're, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And you can't have, you can.
and the other thing with some grants is they're gonna say, potentially, I'm about water, but, they're gonna ask, if you go to Southern, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, they're gonna say, oh, you want this grant for a roadway here? Oh, really? What have you put in for previously? What else have you tried to get money for? So I think talking to Justin would be really helpful, and maybe others in regards to what potentially we might be able to get grant money for.
Kathy had mentioned that this alcove had been working with the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, and I know this one is also, companies that work with them have experience and know what grants are available for restoring historic properties. Like, I mean, if you went through, let's say, Weston and Sampson or something, they aren't going to know about that.
Right.
Whereas someone like this, if you end up working with them, they're going to say, oh yes, go there, there, or there.
And she's actually on the board of the
Yeah.
New Hampshire Preservation Alliance.
Yeah.
So,
They will know what kind of grants to work to try for. Now, there is also a problem I'm aware of with some historic properties. They're not too keen on granting, except if you're going to actually restore it in a historically consistent way.
Yeah.
And not to beat about the bush, if we do something like pour flowable fill under it, it's probably going to kill a lot of opportunities for grant. Whereas if we try and put the beams back in, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities.
I'm gonna put this out in the car.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's the conversation we should have with them too, is, you know,
Yeah,
what do we need to do to put ourselves in that best situation?
best
for
situation,
grants?
yeah. The other thought I had about those beams as well, I mean, until we know what sort of approach is going to be used to level or restore the floor, if you went with the beams, that might work out to be fairly cheap, because we've got 90% of the original wood. All you got to do is put it back in the notches that it was lifted out from, and it isn't pegged or nailed or anything, it would just sits there. You got about 10%, I think it's about 5 or 6 of them, that were cracked and thrown out. You'd have to get replacements made for that. It's not difficult to get those made. But you've got very low material. The labour cost of putting a beam into a slot shouldn't be that great, I wouldn't think. I mean, you obviously need a very skilled person doing it, and you're going to pay an elevated labour cost for that.
Right, right.
But I think it's something that we should keep in our mind, that until we know what we're going to do, your costs may be very different from one approach to another.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Okay, you still looking at October 2nd?
So, yeah, I did just double check it, and it, Kirsten's email did say October 2nd. It
Yeah.
was looking like.
By the way, that's next week.
yes.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday,
I know,
right?
right? Yeah.
What happens in September, it's gone.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, that was what Kathy and
How
Tracy,
many,
whatever it
how
is.
many people are you gonna put together to go there, since they've already,
Well, we're going to avoid a quorum.
Yeah,
That's
so
our
we have to
quorum.
keep, so we have to keep it to 1 to 2.
I don't need to be there. I mean, I would love to be there. I don't need to be. It's only 30 minutes. It's
Yeah, and
gonna
it
be
doesn't
pretty
mean
quick.
that, it doesn't mean that we can't take video or something.
I've been there before. It's all right.
Actually, I still haven't. I need to get in there, but I don't need to be a part of this.
I mean, if someone has a compelling need to go, and I would be one too many, speak up. But you know what? I express my interest is to see what kind of things they're looking at, so I know a little bit about the process.
Well,
It sounds to me like, Mike is gonna follow a process and work out who's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
So-
He initially started by saying leadership, which I assume is you and Kathy.
Yeah, yeah, so I'll talk to him, and I think Kathy wanted to be there because she
Initiated.
initiated it,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm more interested, frankly, one of the reasons I wanted to bring that overview, and I spent some time on their website, just to establish that they appear to have the credentials for what we're talking about. I just happened to pick one project that they were involved in because it seems similar to what we have on our hands. But, I don't need to be involved in this. I'm more interested in the output that they come back with and the opportunity to ask questions after we have something concrete from this firm in terms of a quotation of proposal. And, you know, it's not, in terms of interacting with them, my attitude would be stay out of their way, let them do their thing, let
Yeah.
them come back with a document, and then sit down and say, okay, you know, and I think there'll be opportunity to get back into
Exactly.
the building to look at specifics, but that's kind of I don't, even though I can't make it, I wouldn't go there because it's not a great use of my time and I don't have anything to contribute to that process. I'd be more interested in seeing what they come back with and asking questions.
And my impression
digging
is,
deeper on it.
from the initial 30 minutes or so, there still isn't gonna be anything for us to look at. It's
Right.
gonna be them saying, this is what it will cost you for us to then come back and actually do the structural analysis.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
only-
what I
then-
think is
then and
gonna
only then
happen.
will we actually get a report that
Yeah, so-
we can look at and.
Yeah.
So I was on that, what is it, Rolling Meadows. So when they were doing that big project over there, we had a structural engineer come in, and it was exactly that, and even, like in my career life, we didn't really have to have structural engineers come in, because it was sound buildings and you rent from somebody, right? Or you're building it out of your own space. But, we did have that project at Rolling Meadows, and we had, it was an engineer in Goffstown, and they come in, they came, it was a couple hours, just looked at all the different units and buildings, and went in a couple people's basements just to have a view. And then they took that information, went back, and then about a week later, we had an actual quote proposal on how much it would cost and what they needed to do to be able to actually do the structural engineering inspection, and give us what the portfolio of what needed to be done after. This is exactly what this will be. That's why it's only slotted for 30 minutes, is them to just come in. I'm sure that they're gonna quickly look at the outside of the building to see if there's any sag, to see if there's any rot, and then I'm sure that they'll look at the current foundation state, and then they'll do a walkthrough, just see what that's looking like on the inside, and that will give them enough of especially with her experience, it will give them enough of a know of, okay, this is gonna take me a minimum of this many hours to come in and do the inspection, write up our findings and submit them, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's really what it's gonna be.
Could you tell us what this project was over to Rolling Meadows?
Yeah, so it was their whole, all the units, you guys know Rolling Meadows?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all the units that they were doing over there, they were built in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And, they hadn't been updated in a very long time. So we had to do, a full project over there of all new roofs, all new siding. Two of the buildings had to be lifted because they had a foundation rot. So two of the buildings had to be lifted so that they could replace the seals to put the buildings back down and be safe again. A few of the septic tanks were poor, because that was in the report as well. So they did the septics. And then there was some exterior rot due to the fact that it was used to not be vinyl siding, it was wood siding. So lockout underneath it and rotted the boards behind it. And then insulation, and once they did the roofs, there was some poor roofs as well. So they did blown-in insulation throughout all of the ceilings, and you used to be able to have access to those, and they blocked all those off.
So was that like a homeowners association, or?
Yeah.
So that had to be shared by all the residents?
Correct. So it was an increase in condo fees, and then a one-time special assessment.
Okay. So those are condos rather than apartments?
Correct, those are condos, yeah, and I was on the board of directors over there at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was the president of that association.
Any idea what that total cost?
Yeah, it was 3.4 million.
Yeah, but, and how many buildings are there? There's gonna be like 20 buildings, isn't there?
Yeah, so if I did a quick count, so you got one, because I remember like the layout, so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
15 buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, you know.
Yeah. So it was like 3.4, 3.5, and then I think there was an additional like 1.5 afterwards because there was some additional issues that were found during.
Yeah, and then they get an additional $5 million for water
Yes.
from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services,
Because everybody was on well.
which they still don't have water
Yeah.
until they put the water line on Old Nashua Road.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so that was not pretty, and I shortly after I left the board, and then yeah, just because it was not the best.
Were you living there?
Yeah, so that was actually our first house before we built our new one. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was there for 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said some of the buildings had to be lifted and the foundations had to be redone.
Yeah, all the bushes and everything around them all had to be removed out because they were so overgrown and the roots were starting to go towards the foundations. So all that had to be done. A couple trees had to be pulled out, which were a couple $1,000s a piece because cranes had to come in. So on top of that, cranes had to come in. So yeah, there was an extensive amount of work just due to the lack of work that had been done for many, many, many years.
Who was the contractor? Do you know?
I forget off the top of my head. It was a place in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the contractor though.
Yeah.
This was just due to lack of maintenance.
Oh yeah. Because no condo fees hadn't been raised in almost 20 years. So it was literally just there was no money going towards it.
You got to reinvest.
Yes, yeah. So and I think that's exactly the whole reason I bring that up is because that's also exactly like this. It's
The sequencing.
yeah. So that's what's going to happen with the engineering perspective, and I think we're in the same situation as in like the Lions Club was putting as much into it as they could at the time, but there's only so much funds coming in, right? So the rest of it kind of had to be dealt with as it came, and again I think that's just the situation we're in, and there's obviously unforeseens, just as it was there. So I think we'll get the best input from whoever we end up going with, but this Cove, and then we just take it from there. And like I said, if whether we have them GM it or if somebody from the town can GM it, and then we can go get our own bids. And sometimes you save some money that way because now, if you hire a GM, you're tacking costs on everything that's happening, right?
Yeah.
So every piece of material that comes in, there's a tacked on cost. Every hour of labor, there's a tacked on cost. Just for design, there's a tacked on cost, right? So if you hire a GM, you're paying for the GM. But if somehow we could work with the town to get that done,
Yeah,
and we
I
can
was
find
going
our
to say,
own.
if you can get the town to be involved in that, I mean, maybe by the time you get deep into it and are really putting shovels in the ground, you need a GM.
Yeah, and we're also talking about too, right? Is we put that 800,000 to 1.2, or I think is what I had for one of the builds, but that could be significantly decreased depending on what she comes with, right? If she comes with and says, hey, you don't need to follow these specific codes because of the historic nature of the building, and if she says, hey, you only have to do ADA compliance on this door in the building, not dual access, because you don't have to follow that specific fire code because of the fact of the historical building. That could drastically reduce the cost. I am just not privy to the codes on historic buildings, but
but we might also need to balance between you're not legally obliged to do this, but common sense suggests you do.
And what
Right.
we should.
Right.
Yeah, like do we want to disadvantage disabled people just
Yeah.
because we get away with it?
You don't have to remove the asbestos is grandfathered in.
Right. But that could be part of your phase 2, right? So we're just talking about phase 1, getting it open.
Yeah.
Phase 2 can be, whatever ends up being decided for phase 2 at that step, you know, you're opening it up to more public, right? You're opening up
Yeah.
to more potential things. So with that, your additional access or additional needs can be done during phase two, which can be
Yeah,
sectioned out over years or
but you're
depending
gonna
on
have
where
to
you
be
go.
real sensitive to anything that's safety related because of the liability on the town.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
And at the same time, even liability on the town, it's all dependent on how they write up their contract for use, right? So,
And when something goes wrong,
That's-
they will get
that's-
an enterprising lawyer and
Yeah,
it'll
and
cost you
that's-
more to defend it.
yeah, and that's beyond us, right? That's when it's out of our hands, because we're not the ones renting it out, we're not employed by the town, right? So,
No, but if we leave the place in an unsafe state in some way with our recommendations and the town goes with that, and then they rent it out and something goes wrong.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
she'll give us the best, right? She's,
Yeah.
you know, it's her career on the line
Yeah.
as well, and her, you know, her.
I don't think we can let our guard down.
Yeah. And you know, and at the same time, you know, a lot of like the HVAC quote, pretty large, right? Who says that you have to have full HVAC, right? You could just turn around and do ductless splits. Ductless splits are a lot less expensive than full HVAC systems, because when you're running full HVAC systems, for one, you need to buy the entire unit, and depending if you go heat pump wise, that all goes outside, right? You have to pay for the unit cost, you have to pay for the wiring costs, you have to pay for all the duct work, you know, where if you were to just do a ductless split and she says, or you have somebody come in and they say, yeah, for this size space, you need this many BTUs, you need this many ductless splits, and you'd be good to go. Ductless splits are half the cost, you know, and even less at times.
And I think we have to think about, okay, air conditioning is important in the hot weather, okay?
Right.
But hot weather is not until next summer, okay? So we have to think about that. It does need to be redone because what's in there is pretty crappy.
Yeah.
But I guess it's still working, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
it's pretty noisy, wait a minute. It's antiquated, it does need to be replaced. But we're still talking about opening the building,
Yeah.
and if we, oh, shit. If we could open it next spring, I don't think we're gonna be able to do that. We could open it without air conditioning.
Yeah.
But
And
remember,
so
none of this
we-
can actually start until next July.
We do have to look at the big picture. We do have to look at the whole building.
Right.
We have to keep that in mind, even though we're focusing on downstairs. You know what I mean? But whatever we put into it, we do have to think, this is the whole building, and
Yeah.
we wanna keep it for another 10, 20 years. So,
Yeah.
so whatever we invest in it, we wanna make sure that we're doing the right thing. Like you say, if there's a door that doesn't meet compliance, maybe we
have
should
to-
replace it now.
Exactly. And you know, and she may even come in and tell us, yeah, we're focused on the first floor, but she may come in and tell us too, no, you need to have some sort of an HVAC unit upstairs, right? Because that's an empty cold space.
But it can be on the next plan.
Well, depending on if she says, because biggest things with roofing too, right? So, and going back into that Rolling Meadows thing. So they were just gonna replace the shingles and call it a day. But once the engineer came in and said, you do not have the proper insulation within this space, and if you do not want to keep it as a cold space or a warm space, we're gonna have to rip it out and put insulation in. Or if you want to keep it a warm space, you need to have some sort of whatever in there and proper ventilation and all that stuff. So she may come in and tell us, hey, you're gonna either have to do some insulation up there, or you're gonna have to ensure that you do have some heat and or cool up there, depending on where the plumbing is, right? And at the same time, because of the fact that if it's not a keep cooled space, and there is the potential for heat to rise, right? And depending, and she'll do all that stuff. The ice buildup, snow buildup, all of that stuff on the roof, right? If you keep it as a cold space, you need to have somebody come in and rake roof,
The roof, yeah.
right? But if you do have heat in the upstairs, you don't have to worry about that, right? It's like your home, right? In your home, they have it properly insulated in the sense to where you have heat coming out but not exiting out, right? So you're less likely to have to rake roof as often as in a straight cold space. So, but she'll tell us all that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would like to interject that we don't have to solve this.
Exactly, exactly.
In one of Dave's comments, when we first started this, they detected some form of insulation up in the attic, but they didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he was kind of
And
cryptic
I
about
believe-
that.
I believe nobody yet has figured that out.
yeah, yeah.
Do we know when it was put
Well,
in?
it can be analyzed, I mean,
Yeah.
is it perlite, is it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fiberglass, you know,
Yeah.
somebody can figure that out.
yeah.
Sure.
And there's a lot of that, and that's another thing that we have to figure out at that point too. And I know we're going beyond the topic right now, but I did see, you know, there was a lot of stuff up there too. So who does that belong to? What does that do? Where does that stuff go to? But I know we're kind of getting out of the scope at the moment. But
We gotta come back downstairs.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so I know we kind of covered old business / got into new business. So before we continue with the new business, has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting minutes?
I did.
I did. I forgot to.
I don't
Sorry.
think,
They are posted?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
are they good?
Yes.
Yeah.
They look,
I brought a copy.
oh, you got a copy there, there you go.
If you wanted to take a quick peek, and then we could at least
Yeah.
approve those and
I knew there was something I was supposed to do.
then finish up on any.
Tracy Kozak of our code, okay, I remember that. October 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you find this? I couldn't find
I
it
would
online.
lie if I say.
It's, if you go to the SECPAR's web section, under the calendar, upcoming events, it'll have the date and time of this meeting and the location, if you click through that.
Not under minutes
There's
and
a
agenda.
PDF.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So it's not under minutes.
Oh,
and
can I see that?
agendas.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
You
you
wanna
were
see
Talking
that?
about the agenda or
Yeah, the agenda.
I think if you
Yeah.
look at the,
I have another one here too, if anybody else needs to see it.
Okay.
there's a
Yeah.
calendar listing.
I have no problem with the minutes.
There we go.
And there should be a PDF document of the agenda.
Appears that there's, but that's.
I don't know whether
that's
you
where it would normally
spotted
be.
it on your presentation
You got it
that
on the
night,
desktop,
that
so-
right at the end, I think you switched a couple of numbers because it looked like the revenue, the projected revenue for the second phase was less than
Yeah.
it was for the first.
The kitchen one had lower revenue potential, yeah.
Yeah, my guess is it was last two cells in the spreadsheet, you flipped them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
history now, but
Yeah, I know.
if you're gonna dig out the numbers and use them again, you may wanna take a look at your spreadsheet.
Exactly. Yeah, I know, and I know Kirsten had made a bunch of changes to it before she sent it back, and then sent it over too. So I got to double check with her too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something in regards to, this is about the last meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Which Kirsten was here, and there was discussion about, you know, who's checked with other places, which I had some info, I gave to her. And then
Yes.
she was going to call and contact them. She's been out all week, she's been up in Rochester to a seminar or something, so she probably hasn't had a chance to do that, but I think it's very important that she, or someone, does that.
Yep.
And so, I don't know if that was specifically in here, but we did talk about that.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, so we can follow up with her to see if she's reached out to them as well. Because I do know that she did reach out to this
If you go to the main page.
R code, but I'm.
Well, yeah, but she had already done,
Yeah,
oh,
she
oh,
reached
oh.
out to the others.
yeah,
Yeah. So I'll double check with her on that.
thank you,
No problem.
thank you.
So not this one.
So with that notation as well, so I will.
What's the top?
Boards and commissions.
But this is it right here, so if you click on that, under agendas and legal notices.
I mean, this website has various issues. Click on their upcoming events.
Okay.
And then
Because there are some real expertise, and I'm not suggesting
upload the,
this one here, they seem to have plenty of expertise, but I think we should get it from,
Definitely.
ideally, at least three.
I completely agree.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Why not take advantage, you know, particularly, this one I think is coming in at no charge, right? Pro bono, first time?
First time.
First time, which is fine. Maybe we can get a couple more to come pro bono and get, at least,
They probably will for the first
Yeah.
assessment if it's only a half hour and sort
yeah.
of.
But-
Exactly.
But the more we learn, the better.
Exactly. Yeah. No. 100%.
so I make a motion to vote on the minutes.
Perfect.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
All in favor?
I was
Aye,
asleep over
aye.
here.
For approving the minutes,
So you made the
I
motion?
made the motion.
And
I second
and
it.
Dan, you second.
I
Thank
couldn't
you.
vote, I'm not really a voting member. But I approve.
So I know we had already started.
One of us will vote twice for you.
I know we had already started going into new business, but we discussed a lot. But does anybody have anything else from a new business perspective?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about what might be around the bend for us, but I think the
And-
next.
and get- And getting the word out, which we've already,
Yes.
we've
Yes.
already discussed.
And I think
My biggest question, which I don't know if that's, is, are we going to a different cadence now? Are we still doing weekly? Are we going to every other week, or?
That's a good question.
I think we should probably at least keep next week, only because we'll have hopefully some information back from them.
From these guys,
Yeah, because just to at least discuss what was discussed.
Yeah.
Not saying it has to be an incredibly long meeting, even if it's 30
Yeah.
minutes or so. At least
well,
we can give an update.
just so we learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
decisions should be made on what we've got to get done and how long we've got to do it.
Yeah.
We were at every 2 weeks. The reason we accelerated was the need to meet last week's deadline.
Correct. So I think if we do it at least next Thursday, and then after that, we can discuss whether we do 2 weeks or not, because it might take them a week just to put the report together as well, and that's all dependent on when they can get in there, on their schedule too.
I think, you know, and I may get a kick in the butt for it, but I think we ought to keep going weekly at least till the end of the month, next month,
Okay.
October. Because it feels like we're right there,
Yeah,
and each right there gives us a little bit more, and that makes us even better off. So,
I agree.
so, you know,
I supported that idea.
I would propose, that we revisit it at the end of October.
I agree with that,
Okay.
and don't get me wrong, but I won't be here next week. I have a family.
Are you suggesting we don't meet weekly?
No.
No, I think
You said the end of
Continue the
October.
week.
till the end of October, until the end of October.
Oh, okay, okay, I missed the until.
Want my hearing aids?
Okay.
I thought you had to have hearing aids to be on this committee.
Do we want to take a formal vote on that?
Should we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Get it on the
Does it-
record.
Yeah. Does anybody want to make a motion to continue going every week until the end of October at least?
I shall make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Now,
right.
the last Thursday in October is Halloween, just saying.
Uh-oh.
Don't know that it matters as much to any of us.
Do we have
That's
to-
okay.
Do we have to dress
We're
up?
not scared. We're not scared.
I think we all need to dress in 18th century garb.
So depending on when trick or treat starts, that one I might miss.
Maybe the week before, we're gonna have to discuss that.
We will keep the lines of communication open.
That's right. We have to.
Are we good?
Any other new business? If not, a meeting to adjourn. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Dan?
Yeah, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
7:01.
And the meeting has ended.